Okay.
Oh, we're live! Happy Monday to all of you in Soccer We Trust YouTube fam. Because with each passing week, we are one step closer to our last two friendlies in September and to the November 9th deadline when Greg Berhalter and his coaching staff are going to name the final World Cup roster. So let's see how the U.S. men's national team player pool did this weekend, and let's get after it. Yes! What is up, everyone, and welcome to Roy Wegel's favorite podcast of Soccer We Trust. I'm Jimmy Cash and Conrad, alongside Hollywood Heath Pearce and Charlie Chuckwagon Davies, and we have a great show for you today. As always, we're going to do a lap around the world for all the American players who have a legitimate chance of making the final World Cup roster, and we're going to discuss the upcoming Campeones Cup between the reigning champions of MLS, NYCFC, and the 2022 champion of champions from Liga MX in Mexico, Atlas. So obviously, there's lots to discuss. Chuck, I'm going to come to you first. Anything jump out for you this weekend? Any players you want to discuss right from the get-go? Could even be Christian Pulisic and his new role under Graham Potter at Chelsea. They didn't play this weekend, so we have no Premier League updates to give you. But there is a lot to discuss as to how Graham Potter could potentially utilize Christian Pulisic in his setup. Any thoughts about anything, though? I just wanted to throw that out there. I'm not leading you into anything. You take whatever you want.
I think it's important to touch on Jesus Ferreira and the 90 minutes he played against LAFC, 2 goals off of set pieces. Not like he's mind-blowing you with the goals he's scoring, but it's the influence. And if you're counting 6 goals in 5 games in MLS, the guy's hot. The guy's playing. On the flip side, Brandon Vazquez, who was building this case for himself, has gone the opposite direction since really August 13th.
While his team is raining goals too. Like there's goals for everyone, and he's not scoring them.
Is this? Did we jinx him? He came on the show and he hasn't scored since.
I can tell you this thing: if you're a striker and you're pushing for a national team spot,
don't come on the show,
and you play against Charlotte on September 3rd, 89 minutes, 0 shots, 0. 41% passing percentage. That's not going to do it.
Tell him, Charlie.
That is not going to do it. So I think if the roster was coming out today, given his last 6 games, he's not going to be on it. Now, Jordan Pefok, just looking at his presence, what he means for a top team in the Bundesliga, there is no doubt in my mind that he's not going to be involved in this group. So I think
you're talking final World Cup roster or September rosters. You know what I mean?
I think both.
Okay, I agree with you on Jordan Pefok. I mean, I think he's doing enough. Had 75 minutes this past weekend in their big win to go top of the table in the Bundesliga for Union Berlin. He didn't play midweek in their European contest, and I think it maybe showed that they need his presence in some capacity. I do think, though, Heath Pearce, I'm going to throw to you to this, that Charlie doesn't like Brandon Vazquez. I mean, I thought maybe he was just being nice. He obviously confronted him at the All-Star game, saying you got to pick up your game. Comes on the podcast, and now the slander for Brandon Vazquez is next level.
Slander. It's just,
but Charlie's whole thing was not being wasteful with the ball, right?
That's right. 41% passing completion, not good enough.
Yeah, it's obviously
66. So
yeah,
I mean,
I agree.
And again, Jesus Ferreira on the flip side, and 81%, right, versus LAFC. So I mean, there's a massive difference in the way
against an LAFC that played down a man for 80 plus minutes, and
but
again,
regardless, you have to keep the ball.
Well, there is you do have to keep the ball, and in fact, you'd probably have I don't know if there's a higher risk of losing the ball because they were going after them quite a bit in that game. But yeah, two. I mean, the opportunistic goal. I don't know if everybody that's watching and or listening saw the goals, but quick little set piece at the end, and Jesus Ferreira, I think toe poked it past the goalkeeper with pace, but a very creative way to score. Not the most unbelievable goal, but to get that at that point, and then the redirected deflection free kick from Gareth Bale off of his head to go past to give them the win in the end was pretty amazing in terms of I wouldn't say it's necessarily clutch gene, but Charlie, you know what it's like as a striker to come up with something out of nothing at the end, regardless of a little bit of luck on your side, has to stand for something, right? In terms of the form that he's in, because he's getting a lot of, or has continued to get a lot of criticism of just saying he misses a lot of chances, right? And somebody who created a compilation, and I watched a lot of them, of big chances for the national team that he missed, that you expect a striker that's a starter for the national team in 2022 for the U.S. men's national team has an ability to at least challenge the ball, put the ball on frame more often than not. Do you think those criticisms are fair of him, or are we seeing a real-time development of Jesus Ferreira, more than just the goals, but his impact on a game?
Well, I think that's how he got onto the national team, was not really his goal scoring, it's his involvement and his ability to come back and open up space for other players and good vision with his passing. But ultimately, how good is your hold up play as a 9? I think that had to develop. And if it's not great, then your movement has to be absolutely phenomenal so that you don't ever have to have a center back up against you while you're checking for the ball. So I think he's just continued to develop, whereas Brandon Vasquez had to do X amount to get himself in the camp as a fresh face, and he hasn't done that. So and then I'd also add, against the Red Bulls on August 20th, he had 35% passing possession playing 89 minutes. So that's
Charlie,
2 games where it's not goal for you. So Ferreira, Pefok, Sargent, and now it's got to be Haji Wright, right? In terms of or Pepi. I mean, we're gonna
get to Ricardo Pepi. Don't worry, we're getting to Ricardo Pepi. Don't worry.
Probably at the moment, Haji Wright is the guy in terms for this camp, just on playing time, and you're letting Ricardo Pepi continue to settle at his new club.
That's interesting. I think that Pepi will get called in. I think Greg wants them to be around the group. He wasn't part of the June window, and I think we're going to see Ricardo Pepi in. And for those that don't know, let me go back to Jesus Ferreira really quick. He just scored 2 goals against LAFC. It puts him at 18. That ties the single season record for an FC Dallas player. He's got 3 more games to break that record. He's 4 behind Hani Mukhtar at the top of the MLS Golden Boot standings. I don't think he's going to catch Mukhtar, but I do think he's going to set that record. One thing I wanted to note before we move to Ricardo Pepi really quick, and we're going to go to his number 1 fan, Heath Pearce. Jesus Ferreira is coached by Nico Estevez, who was Greg Berhalter's assistant with the national team. And I wonder how much you think that plays into the type of communication that Jesus Ferreira is getting. I don't blame Jesus Ferreira for this, but I do think it gives him an advantage to know that there's a direct line. Not that he just couldn't have that already with Greg, but to know that you're getting to train maybe a system and get some feedback from a coaching perspective that you know that Greg likes and will play into giving him a better advantage. I just want to throw that out there. Paul Arriola, I think, would benefit from that as well if he ends up making the final roster, that they're both playing for the former national team assistant coach that was under Greg for some time. I'm not using that against them. I just think that's an advantage that they have over other players, especially in MLS.
Yeah, it's hard for me to believe that there's that level of, I don't want to say that's nepotism, but that like Estevez is going to come into a role, and you know what it's like, whether you're a role player in a team or a leader in a team, you're going to have different thoughts than what's being dictated on you, and then when you get to
he froze.
He froze by saying a bad word, by the way.
Yeah.
All I know is that he said dick, and then he's out. Is he talking about me calling out Nico Estevez? I don't know what's happening, Chuck.
Come on,
He's going to come back at some point. I think he's got his wrong Wi-Fi.
Dictate them, right? So Estevez looking at it's going to say, okay, yeah.
Well, it's all catching up.
Yeah, he's catching up. He's still frozen.
He's frozen, and it's catching up in every 10 seconds.
He's got a good pose right here.
Heath is like Max Headroom from way back. That's a throwback to everybody.
He said Nico Estevez is
he's a dick. That's what he said. We
have
that quote from that. Anyway, I don't. There's nothing to really unpack there, but I do think that that's a positive, ultimately a net positive, to be around a coach who's also part of Greg Berhalter's coaching staff and knowing how he works and what he says. And I just think that you have to go out there and produce, to your point. If Brandon Vasquez isn't out there doing the things that are basic for number 9s for us to transition as a team,
it's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen, whether your coach is the former assistant or national team coach or not. So you still have to go out there and perform and produce. And I think that Jesus Ferreira is out there doing that for sure. We're going to get back to a tweet that Heath put out recently once Heath joins us with some proper internet. But let's move on to Ricardo Pepi, because he came on at halftime for Groningen and ends up having an assist. And when I saw the assist initially, I was like, he passes to the guy from like 40 yards away, and then the guy dribbles. It doesn't feel like a proper assist until, Chuck, you see that he's the one that actually anticipated the bad back pass, and he's the one that set up the whole play.
Which is the whole thing.
It's the whole thing. It doesn't happen without Ricardo Pepi's anticipation. And I like that he's sniffing things out instead of trying to react all the time. I like that with a lot of players that are anticipatory and not reactionary. So good play by Ricardo Pepi. And yes, he's using his brain to make that happen. I thought that was a tremendous first start for him to make that type of influence for Groningen, who had been struggling scoring goals and still are. They only won 1-0, but still an important win for that club, Charlie.
As a striker, when things aren't going well for you, you have to figure out other ways to impact the game. and why Greg Berhalter has always been a big fan of Ricardo Pepi is because of his ability to press. And you saw defensive pressure is what allowed him to win the ball back and then play it to get that assist. It wasn't the most beautiful assist, but it was winning the ball back for your team and directly going towards goal.
Right.
That's something that you don't get with all the other strikers in this pool. So in terms of getting himself going and earning respect within the group, it's by doing the dirty work. And so he came on as a halftime substitute. I've been there before. Literally my second game in France, I came on as a halftime substitute. And then I started from that point on. So I think this is that moment for Ricardo Pepi where he's going to start from here on out. He's proven himself that he's going to work for the team. And now he's just got to continue to run with it.
No, I thought it was great. And he came on again at halftime. I'm trying to see when that goal happened, because to have that type of impact for your squad, just going to give you confidence. And it's 71st minute it happens. So he's been on for about 25 minutes. And for him to have that type of impact, it just gets everybody else to buy in why they went and got him. Right. And so that buy-in from your teammates is really important too. Because if you go there right away and people are like, that dude's shit. Like it's hard to win that. That first impression is hard to win back, or it takes a lot longer to make that happen. But hey, Heath Pearce is back with us.
Yeah, he's back from his Estevez rant.
Yeah, you're off on this Nico Estevez. We've moved on past that. We're talking about Ricardo Pepi.
Yeah,
now,
good, because whatever I was saying, I was probably deserving of being booted off for a minute and just sort of rethink about what I was saying. Come back when you're in a better spot. But by the way, Ricardo Pepi, the competition that he has up top is that they brought in a guy from, I believe it was Bielefeld, maybe Erzberg Aue. I can't remember which club he was at, but they paid for him. I think they paid over $1 million for him as a striker to bring him in. Just a month ago, I think they came in June or July. They brought in a striker, and Holland, they play the 4-3-3. You got one spot for an actual high striker. And so that's why if you go back to those comments that were made that there's no reason they can't both play 45 minutes and things like that, it was based on the fact that they brought in a striker. And if you're that striker, you're going, hey, what's going on here, man? You guys just bought me. You told me you wanted me. Now you're bringing in this other guy that's a U.S. international. Obviously, I think Ricardo Pepi is a better player and is going to win that out in the end. But there is going to be some cause for concern, but also an opportunity for Ricardo Pepi to go in there and win that spot and be a starter for these games. And if you win that battle, and I think that's going to make him day to day a better player, because that battle is between two relatively young players vying for that top striker position. Maybe you could throw one on the wing, but they both want to be strikers.
Now let's move to, and I appreciate your insight on that, Heath. I'm going to move it on to Jordan Pefok abruptly to Union Berlin. And what I loved about this game, he played 75 minutes. They won 1-0. As I mentioned before, they're on top of the table now in the Bundesliga, which really speaks to Urs Fischer, their manager, and what he's put together with this team and the belief that he has so early on in this campaign. But he missed a penalty, Jordan Pefok. What was interesting was it wasn't a penalty that he himself earned. You know how sometimes you earn the penalty? I got this. I'm not giving up this ball. I'm going to put it down. Charlie did that all the time. This is mine. I'm going to do it. And it wasn't like that. It was a handball or something that was just kind of – and Pefok was the one that stepped up and took it. Now, he took a very terrible penalty, but I like the fact that his teammate – and it got saved – but his teammates deferred to him. And that he had the confidence to step up and take it. And that the team still went on and made a difference. Jordan Pefok, for me, is definitely going to be in the team. I feel like he might be – I don't know if he starts. He's a situational guy. We don't need to get into that again. But I just wanted to mention that he made the right move by leaving Switzerland, where he was a Golden Boot winner, and going and taking a risk. And Urs Fischer has gotten a lot out of him, and I hope that plays well for the rest of us. Okay, now – there's a tweet that I wanted to go back to, Heath, before we move on from the number 9s and get into other positions on the field.
I hope it's not from me.
It is from you.
Okay.
And it's about Jesus Ferreira. There's a guy that said, this is at Soccer Alt, Kevin Morris, who says, the thing with Ferreira is that a group of moderately influential dorks on Twitter,
that's Charlie.
I think he's talking about Charlie, decided that Ferreira wasn't good. And then their entire brand of being moderately influential dorks was dependent on that being true. So now they'll devote limitless energy to prove that point.
Yeah,
I don't think this isn't isolated to Jesus Ferreira. I think this happens in a lot of different ways.
That's a general theme, generally towards any MLS players or any ideas. Like if you look at the way in which people are arguing for Sargent right now, no one's watching Sargent play 90 minutes. Nobody is. They're just seeing his goals. They're not seeing whether he holds the ball up well, whether there's runs, how he adds to the team. They're just watching goals. And I get that. That's a solid argument because he's scoring goals, which means it's undeniable that he's having an impact on games. But when you look at certain things, or you're talking about Jordan Pefok, or you're talking about Haji Wright, no one's watching Haji Wright play week in and week out. They're watching the games that they want to play. Yeah, they're watching what's readily available to them, right? And so when you think about Jesus Ferreira, you're going to think about big chances missed. We go back to Pefok and his big chance missed, or against Mexico. We look at those types of things, but it's not over this large sample size of like, have they gotten better? Are they improving? What is the impact that they have outside of their goals and assists, Jimmy? So with regard to Jesus Ferreira, yes, he has missed a lot of opportunities, but he's 21 years old, and he's getting better week in and week out. It's not to say he can't become more clinical. He can't become whatever. He can. But we are going to always look for reasons, or people are going to look for reasons to say he can't do it, or this will never translate to a higher level, or it's against MLS. Look how crappy the defenders are.
I think it's more of Ricardo Pepi was there at the same time, and that Ricardo Pepi was a star, not Jesus Ferreira. So how can you, in a lot of people's minds, say all of a sudden Jesus Ferreira is leaps and bounds ahead of Ricardo Pepi? And it's simply down to confidence, right? And then opportunity. So Jesus Ferreira had to defer to Ricardo Pepi. Everyone was trying to play to the point man who ultimately scored all the goals. Now that Ricardo Pepi's gone, you can move Jesus Ferreira to that position, and he's no longer the player who's creating all those goals. He's the one who has to finish. So there's a big difference.
Right.
It allows him to grow in different ways. Ultimately, though, both are very different players. And I think when Ricardo Pepi finds his confidence again, and if it gets going sooner than later, then Ricardo Pepi has a very good chance of leading the line in the first game of the World Cup.
Yeah, it's interesting conversation. I appreciate you bringing up that tweet, and you tagged me on it as well. I do think that.
And then you told me not to tag you on it, Jimmy. You're like, leave me.
I was like, you know what?
He's like, dude, leave me out of your internet stuff, dude. He was like, dude, it's Sunday. I'm with my family.
Yeah, I don't want to get roped
crap.
into some, Yeah, you're throwing out bait, and so and I know what kind of flies you're trying to attract, or moths to the light. So,
but it is true, Jimmy. Real quick on that, it is true in a lot of ways. And look, I don't necessarily do that with regard to our U.S. men's national team, but I certainly do that on players on the fringe of who I watch. When I think about players that are in a team, right? Say you're doing a Champions League game, you're focusing on 3, 4, 5 guys. It's easy to just take what you've read or what you've seen in a small sample size and throw a left back or a center back or somebody random. That's just the way our brains work, trying to process information. So it's not a knock on anybody. And I agree with Charlie's sentiments about Ricardo Pepi and his dynamics. But Jesus Ferreira is continuing to put himself in a good spot, or in a conversation to be respected. Charlie, and the reason I say that is Charlie, again, I always go back to when Charlie and all of us were in the national team together. Charlie was just potential then, and people on the outside could easily just go, Charlie doesn't have it because he didn't score.
Right.
And then Charlie goes on and scores, and now you go, Charlie's
got
amazing.
It. He's good.
He's got it.
Good.
Play that
Put
guy.
him on it. He's never started number 9.
But what I'm seeing is to judge it based on a highlight that comes over or a missed chance from Charlie doesn't tell the whole story of Charlie's development, of where he's at, the potential that he has, and what his upside is. They're just basing it on like, oh, Charlie didn't score. Charlie no good. Charlie scoring. Charlie's the best striker we've ever had in national team history, right? And there's a big
look
delta.
at the confidence of him doing the stanky-legged Azteca. Look at that guy. That's who I want representing me in the number 9 spot. I mean, you can build all these narratives from these different moments and actions. And I agree with you, Heath, that what's interesting is if you get excited about somebody online, you immediately get shut down by a certain sect. It's not the same people every time. You could be excited about a European-based player or whatever, MLS-based player, but there's always somebody like, that guy sucks. And you're like, God, man, I just want to be excited about our player pool and some of the players that we have and their development, their continued development, the fact that they're continuing to produce. So that gets a little bit interesting. And then what I find, and we've learned this, all 3 of us at some point, that sometimes, and the algorithms prove it as well, that negativity sells. So when we go out there and slam somebody, that's probably going to hit the algorithm. More people are going to engage with it. And then you start to kind of buy, this is what I need to say to get the engagement that I'm looking for, to make sure that I'm getting that dopamine hit, that I'm relevant. I mean, I'm not saying
this is human nature. Jimmy, I posted a video saying Chicharito would never on a guy doing a dancing up to a penalty kick right now. People are loving it because misery loves company. It's contextual. It's relevant. It's the guy dancing up to kick a penalty. People are like, I can.
Don't act like that's a normal dance.
Really? This one. Up to
Oh,
the ball.
the
Just
hips,
spike that
the
ball.
hips.
Yeah.
It's all in the hips. It's
Yeah,
all in
but
the hips. Anyway,
I knew what I was doing.
Yeah, of course you did. And it's getting traction because it's funny, right? But yeah. So anyway, that we can unpack that at another time. Moving on to our last real number 9 in the thing. Josh Chargers didn't play this weekend due to the postponement of games in the UK. There was a player named Haji Wright who plays in Turkey. His team lost 1-0. He played the full 90 minutes. He got 3 shots, but none on goal. And obviously, that's what people care about, man. You got to hit the back of the net. Otherwise, you suck. All right, Haji Wright, just throwing that out there. And Brandon Vasquez, because Charlie's already mentioned you like 18 times about how bad you are at holding the ball up. But I just love seeing Charlie's reactions when I throw Charlie under the bus. All right, there's other guys that played, of course, outside of the number 9s, but obviously that's a position we're very concerned about and who's going to start and be the guy for us. We had Yunus Musah playing for Valencia. They lost 2-1 away to Rayo Vallecano. Both of the goals by Rayo were on set pieces. Yunus actually had a great chance, did a nice run in from midfield, out wide, slotted one back. The guy should have scored and he missed it. So he would have and should have maybe, in terms of the goal contributions for Yunus Musah, Charlie, I think that, and I think we've already talked about this before and singing the praises of his manager, Gennaro Gattuso, but I think there's an emphasis of we need you to break the lines. We're either running with or without the ball and getting forward. And honestly, at that point, if that guy would have slotted it, he basically went, just for everybody that didn't see it, he makes a run from midfield, picks up the ball towards the outside of the box, and pushes it back towards the penalty spot. Great decision, great play. Guys there, side foots it over the bar. If he just picks a corner, it's 1-1 at that point. But I think it really just continues to speak about his evolution as a player and how much I want to say his decision-making, Charlie, in terms of like when to go and when to stay. I think that's the hardest thing at times to teach the young players is the timing, because you can't go 100 miles an hour the whole time. And that's what you learn as you get older. You got to pick your spots. How efficient can you be with your movements? And when I had the chance, as my flex of the day, to play against Real Madrid, and there was Zidane and Beckham and Roberto Carlos and Ronaldo and Raul and all those guys, that was the thing I took away the most, was how efficient they were and how they moved. They didn't waste any energy. They weren't chasing dumb balls up over the top. They just picked their spots, and they were so good at it. And then they I won't tell you the final score, but man, what a hell of a lesson I learned over 90 minutes.
No, I would say it is set and secure for Yunus Musah. The kid is a absolute baller. What separates him, and there's a lot of Darlington Nagbe in him. I keep bringing it up because of the change of pace. He's good on the ball. He knows when to accelerate, and when he accelerates, you can't catch him. I think playing at Valencia, he's able to now really harness that final third, that final ball, making sure that he gets his shots on target. You know, he's really, I think, our player with the biggest potential. You know,
let me say this. Hold on. I got to get everybody's thoughts on this. Hold on, because this is a great jumping off point. And anybody that's listening, hit us up on Twitter at ISWT Pod. Drop us a follow there too. If you're watching live on YouTube, hit subscribe, of course. Hit like. We'd appreciate that. And then also tell us right now, when we look back in 5 years, Charlie, will we think that Yunus Musah, or maybe 10 years, that Yunus Musah was the best player we actually produced out of this crop of players? Because I said a couple years ago that when we look back, Christian Pulisic won't be the one. That will, I didn't say in terms of talent. I said most impactful. I actually had Tyler Adams as the most impactful out of our group. But now I think Yunus Musah might be eclipsing him. And when we look back at this particular group, Yunus Musah is going to be the one going, God damn, we had a superstar in our hands. He's just not there yet. And now, after 10 years, it's clear that he's proved that.
Yeah, I mean,
is he your guy? I mean, who's your guy? Everybody, let us know.
Musah and Adams, right? They're fantastic. They're very different in terms of what you want, right? So Tyler Adams, I think
he's our captain for the next 8 years.
He breaks up all the plays. He makes the right challenges. He covers so much ground. I think where he needs to improve is on the ball is distribution, and he's doing that right now. And Yunus Musah, I think there's so much more room to grow in terms of the final product, goals and assists. His dribbling is just probably the best that we've ever had in the midfield. Absolutely the best we've ever had in the midfield for the U.S. men's national team.
You're right.
So I would go with Yunus Musah as ultimately the player with the most to go.
I mean, we can look at Brendan Aronson, Gio Reyna. I mean, Gio Reyna, for me, it's all about health. It's not – nobody questions whether that guy's talented or not. He's got more talent in his pinky than I have in my whole body. And it's just a matter of whether he can stay healthy, because he's got a little bit of a glass house feel. Brendan obviously has got a shout there, but he's more Energizer Bunny, even though he can dribble really well and he does a lot of work. I think what we appreciate him most for is just like his drive and his desire to make plays every single time the ball, any play, every single play, he's up for it. So not to say the other guys don't have that, but I feel like that's kind of his hallmark. And thankfully he's got the talent to back up that drive. But in terms of pound for pound talent and the fact that he's still 19 years old, it's got to be Yunus Musah, right? I don't know. I mean, obviously there's younger kids that are coming up, but I'm just talking about this current player pool. When we look back on this generation.
You have some heartburn? I feel like you're like keeping in these burps.
I can't confirm or deny what I had for breakfast.
Charlie like Davies. You had some spicy burritos or something.
I might have gone and elected to eat something that I don't normally eat
that chest.
I'm also, when you're 75 years old, you know what I'm talking about, Chuck? You gotta make sure that the diet is
holding it down, but drink some water. Yo,
Heath Pearce is back.
Jim's got some heartburn because
I got some heartburn. You know what?
He's like every other.
I'm just so excited to talk about Yunus Musah. Okay, Heath, I'm glad you're back.
Oh man, was it what I said again? I was on another.
I don't know why you disappeared this time.
Thank God.
I will say that this time I had like 40 things pop up on my screen needing like passwords and stuff. So one of you guys hit me with that with that virus.
Maybe
someone in the comments did.
People you're trolling, dude. You're trolling. You're trolling the trolls. So here's the question, Heath, that we pose to everybody, and Charlie and I are on the same page with this. When we look back in 10 years, who do you think will end up of this current player pool will be the player that has really become the superstar? We both elected Yunus Musah. Gio Reyna's in there, of course, if he can stay healthy. Tyler Adams, for different reasons, I think he's more of our captain for the next 5, 6, 7, 8 years. But do you think Yunus Musah is like the guy we're going to look back upon?
Yeah, weirdly, I mean, honestly, I would add Brent. I would say if not Yunus Musah, I would say the order is correct. I would be the same. I would say Gio Reyna. Obviously, right now I'm kind of stuck in the clouds of like his injuries and what that could be long term.
It's just injuries with him.
Yeah,
it's just injuries with him.
But I would even contest that Gio Reyna could be number one just in terms of like his ability to do what we see him do great, but at the next level and the next level at the Champions League and big games like that, I could see that happening. And then for me, when I depends on how we divide these parameters up, but like I could also see Brenden Aaronson playing at a big club in Champions League consistently and being impactful. Now, not the star that I think a Gio Reyna could be or a Yunus Musah could be, but I could see Brenden Aaronson having probably one of the best club careers in terms of the size of the club and being a consistent starter of anybody in our history for sure in 10 years.
Yeah, Weston McKennie. Somebody gave a shout to Weston McKennie. And I think he still has, until proven otherwise, he's our most clutch player. We have a here from
wasn't clutch
comments. Do you think Paxton or Brendan will be the better Aaronson? Hard to say at the moment without seeing.
I would say it was going to be it was going to be like everybody thought Paxton when Brenden Aaronson even made the move to Salzburg of like what Paxton's upside could be. He's a little bit more, I think, a vertical attacking threat, but it's hard to argue that against Brenden Aaronson now and the progress he's made during the last 18 months. It's
wild. Incredible. He's taken some really, really, really big steps. Well, speaking of Weston McKennie, he started for Juventus against Salernitana this past weekend. Juan Cuadrado ends up making a bad read on a play, goes up over the top. Weston McKennie leaves his central midfield role to go defend this guy 1v1. The guy does enough to get past him to get a cross off, and Salernitana goes up 1-0. They end up going up 2-0. And at 2-1, Mr. Clutch gets subbed out, Weston McKennie, unfortunately. And then Juve find a way back into it and make it 2-2. They probably should have won. VAR is a bit sketchy over in Italy at the moment, given that. Should have been 3-2. Milik had scored, and then he took off his shirt, and then they got a yellow, which was a second yellow, so he got the red card. You know what's interesting? Can we just sidebar here really quick? Like, if you take off your shirt to celebrate a goal, why that every action, if the VAR changes the call, then any action that you reacted to on the previous action, I think should be nullified. Like,
I mean, what if you punch? Can you punch someone in the face then, Jimmy?
Well, yes, I'd be totally up for that rule. I would totally like you could go.
I'd be like, I'm offside. I'm gonna get a clean hit on someone right now because there's nothing they can do about it. Call it back, baby.
I'm just throwing that out there. That one is in direct relationship to him scoring a goal and being super excited. Why he did that when he was on a yellow is absolutely batshit crazy for me. Anyway, I don't know what he was thinking, but. It just feels a little unfair that, okay, if you're taking my goal away, then so you should also take away my celebration. That's my sidebar on that. Any comments on Weston McKennie? Charlie, anything on his performance. I don't think we need to get him isolated in 1v1 situations defensively because it didn't look great for him in that particular play. But again, Juan Cuadrado, yeah, it's not his strength, but Juan Cuadrado made the decision that was the first domino ultimately to lead to that whole play.
No, Weston's extremely important for this team. I mean, talk about the U.S. men's national team and off of set pieces, just 50-50 balls. He partners well alongside the midfield with Tyler Adams and Yunus Musah. I think that the trio are gaining more experience playing with each other, understanding each other's tendencies and how to move forward. You know, Weston's fantastic with his late runs out of midfield, and I think Yunus is continuing to develop the skills he needs to at Valencia to help the U.S. men's national team. So it's a perfect situation for us right now. And Tyler Adams. He's bossing the English Premier League, so he's playing against a lot of the players he's going to be seeing in the World Cup. What more would you want from Tyler Adams? So I'm excited about our midfield. And then you can throw in players who can come into it. Brendan Aronson can play in the midfield. Gio Reyna, if healthy. So I'm not worried at all about our midfield.
No, I'm not either. We're going to get into our center backs here after the break. I do want to say that Joe Scally got a full 90 minutes for Borussia Mönchengladbach against Freiburg. Freiburg's been playing very, very well. Didn't take their chances, but nothing that Joe Scally was involved with. Eric Palmer-Brown played 66 minutes in Troyes' 1-0 loss at Lens. They ended up playing. He played on the left side of a back three. The goal that they scored, it was a guy he was marking on a set piece, so that's never a good look. So that's unfortunate for him because he's still, I feel like, on the precipice of maybe getting called into this camp, not necessarily making the World Cup roster. We had Mark McKenzie go 90 minutes in a big win for Genk over Union Saint. I can't even say it, but they just beat Union Berlin in Europe midweek, so that was a big win for them. Sammy Vines with the 90 minutes for Royal Antwerp over Bruges, Cercle Bruges in that one. So that was a big one for that. He didn't have any involvement in any of the goals, but something worth noting. And then we're going to talk a little bit about Zimmerman, Yedlin, and Aaron Long after the break. So I want to get your guys' thoughts.
You said Mark McKenzie? I wasn't sure.
Yeah, Mark McKenzie. He went 90 minutes. Big 90 minutes for him against Genk. So, all right, we're going to take our first and only break of In Soccer We Trust. When we come back, I'm going to not interrupt Heath so he can give us his thoughts. And then we'll obviously preview the Campeones Cup that's coming up between NYCFC and Atlas and the stretch run of MLS before the playoffs begin. Don't go
and
anywhere.
Get some Pepto-Bismol.
The UEFA Champions League. 9 months of heart-stopping, hold-your-breath acceleration. While Mbappe shines in the city of lights, Benzema's racking up the hat tricks, and the Reds want more magic in Liverpool. This ain't amateur hour. This is the best of the best of the best. This is the UEFA Champions League. Stream every match live on Paramount+.
Welcome back to In Soccer We Trust. I just threw down a whole bottle of Pepto-Bismol to make sure my heartburn is all good for us in the second half. I'm Jimmy Conrad alongside Charlie Davies and Heath Pearce, and we are excited that you're joining us today on this Monday. Hope everybody is doing well as we continue our recap. Now, one of the big themes I wanted to talk about in the second half of the show, boys, is moments, because there are certain moments that I'm seeing from certain players where we have to have them locked in. It can be on either side of the ball. And I saw some things from some center backs, the MLS guys, and DeAndre Yedlin, where there's these little plays. And I know the New York Red Bulls won. Aaron Long's the captain of the New York Red Bulls. They won 2-1. But on the first goal that Tommy McNamara scores for the New England Revolution, Aaron Long is so disconnected from the rest of his other center back. His spacing's way off. He doesn't read the play. And that is what's going to cost us in a World Cup, man. It's moments. Are you going to step up and concentrate in these moments, and these little things, these little spaces matter? And that kind of bummed me out about that, because as we get closer, we have to start nitpicking everybody, no matter where they play, to make sure they're as sharp as possible going into this, because that one mistake could cost us if we're not covering, we're not locked in, we're not focused. And now I'm getting a little bit more. I'm just saying that I'm getting a little bit more serious. And Heath, I interrupted you before the break. What do you have to say?
Can I talk?
Yep.
Is that cool?
Yep.
Do I have? Okay.
You have the floor.
Is this mic on? Did Jimmy mute me?
No, well, are your passwords working?
Yeah, dude. Something's going on over here for sure. But look, I think this is a true and bona fide criticism of Major League Soccer, is that there is not the pressure of other places. And I've lived both. I know that there were times at points in my career where I was competing for a starting spot in Major League Soccer, and I could feel that. But the pressure to compete in training day in and day out in Europe, even outside of the top 5 leagues, culturally and depth-wise, And again, the fact that academies have been long attached to that you're always competing with somebody for your spot week in and week out. You've got somebody coming up underneath you. You've got the transfer windows, which is true in some level with MLS. You just don't have that pressure to never make mistakes, right? And to learn from those, or the pressure that the mistakes have consequences for you, not just for whether your team wins today or tomorrow, but actually, am I going to get on the field again, right? That pressure to compete and to prove yourself day in and day out over and over and over again, I think doesn't exist in MLS. Yes, rosters are deeper. Yes, the league is far better than it was even when I was playing in it. But there's still that issue for our stars, for our players that are playing in the national team. They're not competing for starting spots. Whereas Chris Richards has got to compete for a starting spot week in and week out. Now, whether he wins or loses that battle, who knows? It's going to make him a better player. It might not be the right club for him to get his minutes long term, but those consequences force you to be on at all times. And we're seeing at times the result of that across the board, not just our center backs and moments, Jimmy, but moments for all of our players. You could say Jesus Ferreira, same thing. That pressure that Ricardo Pepi has when he gets a half chance versus the pressure of Jesus Ferreira that knows he's going to get another chance later on is very different in how you shape a player. And I think that is a true criticism of where the league is at. And it's continuing to get better and better. And the rosters and budgets and everything are going to get to a point where we have that depth or that pressure. But right now it's still not there for at least our big stars. For a young kid, yeah, that pressure is there to compete for a spot. But for our guys that are established, no one's taking their spots from them in their teams.
Okay, so Charlie, I want to throw this to you because I think this is an interesting conversation. There is some value, though, to knowing you're going to be the guy that plays week in and week out. There's a comfort level. There's a trust, right? We all think that Christian Pulisic needs that. He needs a run of games where he can make mistakes and still feel like he can get up and get after it again, because that's an important part of your coach and team and player relationship. Now, that's an attacking player. From a center back perspective, there's a lot of value to, if you're playing regularly, that you learn how to do the intangibles. How do you organize a team? How do you get more out of the guys around you? These are all really important things. And what I was pissed about with regard to Walker Zimmerman, I'm going off. You guys can laugh.
Jimmy, don't let him twirl his pin in your face, dude. He's twirling on you right now, dude.
He's fine. He's on his yacht right now. Just tell me what the ocean looks like over your right shoulder, Charlie, right now. But
twirling on him.
I didn't take Charlie for a cruise guy, but I get it. You know?
He's like, yeah, how's your Disney cruise treatment? But
Mediterranean one. Yeah.
But my criticism of Walker Zimmerman when I watched the Nashville game when they played against the Galaxy this weekend was that they're sat way too deep. They sat way too deep and absorbed the whole time.
Nashville.
I get that, but there's some point you can still drop somewhat deep and give your goalkeeper, in this particular instance, Joe Willis, the opportunity to get off his line and make plays. They just sat. That's not defending. That's just like 10 guys behind the ball and you hope for the best. And thankfully they got punished for it because they ended up giving a goal late. Anyway, I just think there's some intangibles, Charlie, that do come into play if you know you're going to play regularly, that are harder to grasp if you're just trying to survive training after training, game after game, and you have to feel like you have to be perfect every time you step on the field.
That was the longest center back rant.
Okay, you know what? It's like your final thoughts, Charlie. Okay,
I love it. Hey, Jim, I actually love it. You're so passionate about the center backs.
Jimmy, you love soccer, dude. I can tell.
It's amazing. I think the key word that you said in the very beginning, 8 minutes ago, was comfort, right? And so the whole idea for our players to be comfortable is not, I think, what you actually want, because you want them to be tested every day and not to feel comfortable. That's how they're able to grow and realize that, man, there's consequences with my mistakes, because most of the players in MLS, no disrespect to any of the players who are in the U.S. Men's National Team pool playing in MLS, there are no consequences. If you don't do well, if you don't deliver, you're still playing every week, regardless.
Mm-hmm.
In Europe, that's not the case. And you can see some of the young players. Mark McKenzie is a great example. He's had to go up and down and realize you could start one match and not play for 2 months, 6 months. And now he's finally found his groove and he's playing every week. And that's because they sold a player who's playing over him, right? And then that opportunity comes and you have to grab it and play. And you realize that the way you train is how you play every week, every day. So Chris Richards in that environment, which you talked about, Heath, is perfect. I want him to have to earn his minutes. I want him to learn from Patrick Vieira, to actually be pushed by two center backs who are quality. Those are two highly valued center backs. You're not walking into any team. And he took that opportunity because he said, you know what? I'd rather be in this environment, be pushed, learn from Patrick Vieira, than be at Bayern and be on the reserves, right? So
I do.
Is Charlie still talking?
Hold on.
Hey, you went
let me know when you're done,
15
Charlie.
more
I'll hit
I'm
stop,
done.
Charlie,
Go
as soon
ahead.
as you're done.
You got to find the balance of playing and being pushed.
I fully agree. And the hard part, Jimmy, with that is it's not perfect, right? Because we could look back in 12 months and say, what was Chris Richards doing at Crystal Palace, right? Or Chris Richards could go in 3 months and go, hey, honestly, you guys, I thought you guys were going to give me a legitimate chance, and I'm not getting a chance. I'm playing scrap minutes. When I come in, I'm playing well. You're not giving me more. There is a risk to that, right? It's not just this whole whatever, creating diamonds type of thing that's always going to be the case. There's going to be the downside situations also of playing week in and week out. Oh, Christopher Walken, that's so good.
Oh, that's a good one. That's legendary.
Christopher Walken said getting more heated than Jimmy's esophagus on the screen in the comments, which is just so well.
He just burps again.
But you want pressure and you want to be in those environments. You want to be uncomfortable, but you also want to be realistic in the fact that there's a chance you don't play. And there is bigger factors than that a coach might just look at you and go, I don't think you're as good as them. Even if you're training better, even if you're playing better with your chances. This is the Pulisic argument where you just look at him and go, no, you're not that good to me. It doesn't matter what you do. And that's the reality of a tough situation where then you default back to, well, I need to go somewhere that I know I can play. And that's what ends up happening. And if you fall into Major League Soccer, great that Walker Zimmerman's found his place in the national team because he's played consistently for a few years as one of the best defenders in the league. But now what's the thing that's going to take him to the next level? That's pressure. I don't think he has that.
Yeah, it's interesting. And it's a good conversation to have. If you guys want to chime in, hit us up in the comments. That doesn't involve my esophagus. Sorry, I got to burp really quick. Or hit us up on Twitter, ISWTpod. So let's talk about Christian Pulisic. We teased it a little bit at the beginning of the show. Charlie, I'll come to you as our resident attacker.
Mm-hmm.
What are your hopes? I guess I already know what your hopes are for Christian Pulisic. Play as much as he possibly can. But what do you think are the realistic expectations we should have as fans under Graham Potter? Knowing that he plays a similar system, that he does an excellent job, Graham Potter, of getting the most out of his players, Trossard in particular, who he unearthed in some capacity from Belgium and has really made him into a very productive player. And there's a comparison from a Jeff Reuter article on The Athletic that Christian Pulisic could be kind of his Leandro Trossard, where he's playing multiple positions, but still getting the most out of what Christian is capable of, including playing wing back, which is an interesting thing, which would be, I think, much to the chagrin of fans. But if that's a better position for a Christian to go and attack and be on the ball, then maybe that's the best fit. What are your thoughts on Christian Pulisic under Graham Potter?
Well, I think the first thing that happens in this situation is that you have a meeting with Graham Potter. And the interview that Graham Potter gave while being announced as the Chelsea manager was saying he likes to know what these players are about, their personal lives, what gets them, what are they motivated about, trying to figure out what's the best way to get Christian Pulisic going at Chelsea under my management. So you're going to get opportunities. You have to impress in training. You have to know exactly what he wants from his players and what he expects from Christian Pulisic. So there's going to be probably a 2 to 3 week period of him trying to figure out how does he work in this system. What does he want from Christian? Does he want him to play out wide? Does he want to play on the right? You have Raheem Sterling, who is 100% starting regardless, right? With that investment, he's on the starter on the English national team. He's playing. Aubameyang is the only natural striker they have, so he's going to be playing, and rightfully so, because when he is fit, he's going to be scoring loads of goals in the Prem. So there's that one position that you have Kai Havertz, maybe Mason Mount will play there, but if Mason Mount plays in the midfield, then it's Havertz and Pulisic. I'll take Pulisic again all day in those wide areas over Kai Havertz, because Kai Havertz is in those weird spots. What's his natural position? He's not a 9. He's not really a 10. He's not an 8. He's not a winger.
He's like a 9.5, right?
So it's about getting that opportunity, staying fit, and then hopefully carrying that into each performance.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. And one of the things that was noted in this article from the players from Brighton is how good of a communicator Graham Potter is. And it's already been reported that he's had individual meetings with every single player, and hopefully that'll clear up what needs to be done, both individually and collectively. How are you feeling about this move for Christian Pulisic, Heath?
I mean, I'm hopeful that that he just gets a legitimate shot and opportunity. I think it's hard to argue that he didn't get shots under Tuchel. Now, whether Tuchel respected him enough to reward him for those, he definitely got time. And I think did well at times, but also just like a number of them had his dips as well, mostly, injuries and things like that. So I'm hoping that this player's manager builds a relationship with Christian Pulisic, that he can at least feel like he knows his role, and until the next transfer window, be able to just play freely or openly, or where he, opportunity to leave, where he says, you surplus the requirements, but we're not going to keep you here if you don't want to be here for obvious reasons. And then from there, get the chances to convert, hopefully, on the field and positions. Yeah, he could be used in 4 or 5 positions. I don't know if he would like that or be happy about that. I don't know if wing back is something that he could dedicate himself to, because you do have to defend quite a bit. But yeah, I share the sentiments of you guys as well.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. And their first game is under Graham Potter, because of the postponement, is in the Champions League this weekend. Or this week, excuse me. So we'll have to wait and see how it all plays out. They're playing against RB Salzburg at Stamford Bridge. And that should be an interesting first game for Graham Potter and for the team. I expect with the new manager bounce, because they're getting somebody in who, I don't know, it seems to give off more warmth than Thomas Tuchel, or at least this current version of Thomas Tuchel. I think we'll be ready for a change of ideas, change of voice, whatever it may be. So I think that Chelsea will show up and play well, if you wanted my prediction on that. All right, let's talk about the Campeones Cup, because this is a bit fourth iteration of this, between the champion of MLS taking on the champion of champions in Liga MX in Mexico. This iteration is between NYCFC and Atlas. The funny part about this, and Charlie, I'm going to come to you on this, is that NYCFC have lost 4 out of their last 5 games. The other 5th game was a draw, so they don't have any wins in their last 5. Atlas haven't won in 8 games. Since August 5th was the last time that Atlas has won. They're currently 2nd from bottom in Mexico. So this doesn't really live up to the billing of champions per se, but they're playing the Yankee Stadium. You'd like to hope that they would play, I don't know. Why not open up MetLife? Get MetLife out there and see how many people you can draw to a bigger stadium than maybe Red Bull Arena. But Yankee Stadium it is, where NYCFC currently plays their home games at times, majority of them. What are you thinking about this, and who do you think is going to win? I mean, I love the competition. I love that you have, anytime you can set up a real good game between a Mexican club and an MLS club. I think I'm all for it. I'm a big fan of that. But these 2 clubs in particular are not necessarily playing very well at the moment.
No, New York City FC have been shocking.
Way to
Tell us how you feel.
Charlie.
Tell us how you feel, Charlie.
Because they're so talented, but it comes down to the coaching at this point. It's not Tati Castellanos, even though Tati Castellanos was amazing in Major League Soccer and creating for that team, scoring goals. It's more than that. It's setting the team up to have success. They've had some injuries, but at the end of the day, the manager, Nick Cushing, has not gotten things right for this group at all. So in terms of setting this team up to win, I mean, they lose to Charlotte, and Charlotte is hopeless. I mean, so they moved Tyus Magno to be that center striker. They haven't gotten the most out of him. They're playing guys out of position. So I don't know. This could be, even though Atlas isn't in form either, it's going to be a small pitch. It's you could expect a lot of shots and opportunities, because the transition game that is what you play in New York City FC, because it's so tight. So okay.
Prediction? What's your prediction then? Do you think Atlas has a chance? I mean,
absolutely
they're just as shocking, if not more shocking than.
I don't know if more. But also, by the way, and Charlie, I don't mean to jump in before your prediction, but I'm trying to save you on this one because who knows, Jimmy. But also, this is falling right before the Red Bull NYCFC game that's basically going to decide NYCFC's season, of their ability to make the playoffs, the importance of this, falling right into this. I don't know if this salvages a season, because it is a bit of a bizarre one, but it could be a turnaround moment. We saw with Orlando go and win the Open Cup and then get absolutely dismantled by Philadelphia Union. And so I don't know, it could be a turnaround moment for a team that's sort of in need of that. But we all know that it's really hard. You go into these things and you go, oh yes, could be a turning point for them, but it's really hard to just flip a switch on in a team sport like soccer. If you're not getting it done, it's really hard to see it playing out otherwise.
No, I agree with you 100%. I think that NYCFC needs something. They need that boost. And I think having a good performance against Outlaws could get them there. But because they have some big games coming up, you wonder if they're going to roll out their best team. And with Outlaws, who knows? I mean, they clearly have the core, very similar to NYCFC, that have had success. They know how to have success, but it's not that easy to hit that switch no matter how good you've been in the past. So we'll be interested to see that. Let's talk very quickly then before we get to the end of the show and final thoughts. And obviously, we have a big guest coming on later in the week, so just be prepared for that, as we always do for you. So that should be a lot of fun. But let's talk about MLS. We're down to the stretch run. Some teams have 3 games left. Some have 4. Some have 5. It's getting pretty tight. And Charlie, your New England Revolution, the best team, I think, in MLS in dropping leads this season. They're currently 3 points away from the final playoff spot in the Eastern Conference. They're 3 points behind the Crew, 4 points behind Cincinnati and Orlando. Do you think they can get there? What's going on with the Revs, man? They were the best team by far last season.
They don't have a clear number 9. They've had a lot of injuries. I just think that the team isn't balanced right. It's unfortunate because this is a team that was record-setting in the league last year, and you make some sales. You know, I think Georgia Petrovic has been an incredible signing for replacing Matt Turner. So the goalkeeping position is not the issue. It's the scoring and generating chances out of midfield, because all they have is Carlos Heel, and you can't just have one player who's responsible for everything. And that's kind of what it's been. You've had some games where all of a sudden you have some magic moments, like against the New York Red Bulls. They come out with this magical play, combine, switch the point of attack, and then Tommy McNamara scores because of Aaron Long not being connected to the center back, and then they give up 2 goals. So I just think that they put themselves in a really difficult position. They probably have to win the last 4 games, and starting tomorrow against Houston. So 3 wins and a draw will maybe do it. You probably need some help. 4 wins, that's really difficult. So, yeah, it's not looking good for the Revs.
Yeah, they've got a lot of work to do. The Crew, though, have 5 draws in their last 6 games. They're not necessarily running away with it. Cincinnati has 4 draws and 2 wins in their last 6, so they're kind of inching along as well. And then you have Orlando City, who coming off the Open Cup win. Congratulations to them. Threw up a dud this past week to lose, but ultimately still in a decent spot. And NYCFC is dropping off. I don't think you're 8 points behind NYCFC for 4th. I don't think the Revs are catching them, but I think there's room to have a conversation at the top just to finish out the Eastern Conference. Then I'll throw it to the West for Heath. Philly Union, the class of the league. We're going to try to get somebody from the Philadelphia Union on very soon, because whatever they're doing it exactly right and absolutely dominating the league this season, especially on the Eastern side. Montreal, surprise team in 2nd. The Red Bulls in 3rd, but they're a little hot and cold at times. Then NYCFC, Orlando, Cincinnati, and Columbus are the top 7. New England on the outside looking in. On the West, we'll just go right into keep into the standings. LAFC, who were the team, and obviously when they made the signings of Chiellini and Bale and all the other players that they're getting, thought, slam dunk, they're going to win the whole league. Since then, have been a little shaky, Heath, and I know you go and do a lot of coverage of the team. Lost 4 of their last 5, and we'll see what happens. Austin FC in 2nd, also lost 4 out of their last 5. FC Dallas on the up and up, only 2 points behind Austin for 2nd. Nashville's there, 4 wins out of the last 5 in 4th, and the Timbers in 45 points, Minnesota 44, Salt Lake on 43. The Galaxy are kind of right there, and the Sounders both in 8th and 9th at 40 and 39 respectively. What do you say about the Western Conference, Heath? And do you think LAFC are still the favorites, or do you think this has got to be Philadelphia Union at this point?
I mean, for Supporter Shield, it's got to be Philadelphia Union. Just the way that they're scoring goals right now. There's a game in hand for LAFC in terms of, I think one has 3 and one has 4 games left. But LAFC have just found, and we all know what MLS playoffs are like, right? It's about rounding into form at the right time of the year. Now, when they went back and had this poor road stretch and lost 3 in a row, LAFC, you go, okay, if you can bounce back from that, you can find that form into the postseason. You learn from those things. You take your punches, because I think every team needs to. And Steve Cherundolo was very much about, like, sometimes I wished we lost other games earlier in the year that we'd learned from some of the things that we're doing now. But instead, you get away with a win or you get away with a point, and you're not forced to learn those things. So they're going through that right now. And then Austin, obviously, with Drusy, this was the big talk of, like, MVP. There might actually be another MVP worthwhile, and Hani Mukhtar being maybe worth that shout, or whoever that might be. So
would Gazdag have a shot? I mean,
Gazdag is another one that,
be in there.
If you've judged it based on current form and his name popping up every single weekend, Absolutely. And so I think LAFC only need to get one win of their last ones to wrap up the Western Conference. But a lot of that's going to come down to kind of what the playoffs roll out as is who has the best chance. Because very rarely do you see a 1-1 play each other in the final. It's going to be about that scheduling.
Yeah, it is. And
but you get the home games. You get the home games.
Yeah, you get the home games. Yeah, the New England Revolution couldn't take advantage of that last year, unfortunately. So we'll see if a number one see the Supporter Shield winner going to get cursed again, or if they can make it to the final and make sure they're holding that trophy over their head at the very end. All right, we are to our final thoughts. We appreciate your support of In Soccer We Trust. If you're listening to it on a podcast platform, make sure you hit subscribe. We'd appreciate that. If you want to leave a 5-star rating, we wouldn't say no to that. We'd really appreciate that as well. If you're watching on YouTube, hit like and subscribe and tell all your friends about your new favorite podcast. It's on the YouTubes, In Soccer We Trust. We also have some merch. If you want to get some of that, go make it happen. I have my mug right here. Yeah, it looks like Conrad, Davies and Pearce. We're like a law firm, everybody.
Yeah.
So if you guys have any legal trouble, we're also here for you in that end as well. All right, final thoughts. Heath, I'm going to come to you first. Any final thoughts about what we saw this past weekend? Any MLS action? Anything to look forward to? Obviously, you got some big Champions League and Europa League games coming up this week.
No, but shout out Christopher Walken, Los Pollos, Leeds Yank, No Name, Alex Soccer, Stephen Moore, Rashid F, P. Morton, Fashion Icon, and everybody else that jumps into the comments and gets this thing going. I mean, the comments were popping off today, and we've got some really good tension in there. But it's really fun, and we appreciate all of you taking the time out of your day. And those of you listening to it in audio as well, obviously not part of the live conversation. But, man, this community is growing, and want everybody to feel like they have a voice here to be part of this conversation. So I just wanted to give that shout out with some names. There's a lot more names in there. I was just reading off the top, so we'll get to them.
Heath, if you didn't read your name, everybody, Heath doesn't like you. That's pretty much what I'm picking up.
Well, you know, I sometimes I have a bad day and I just need to throw it back to everybody else to support me. You know, this is just an attempt to win a few fans back. You know,
I love that. I love that. All right, how about you, Charlie? Final thoughts?
Yeah, Champions League. You have City, Dortmund, Juve, Benfica. Maybe John Brooks make his debut because he hasn't played yet. So Weston McKennie and Brooks, and Gio Reyna versus former teammate Erling Haaland. So some of those are the things I'm looking forward to. Maybe, Christian Pulisic against RB Salzburg, he gets a start with Graham Potter. Maybe that's an opportunity to really perform and start to get more playing time. So, yeah, and maybe Serginho Dest starts. We haven't seen him.
Please start. You're playing against Zagreb. Let's go.
Let's get some of our Yanks on the pitch.
No, that's what I want to see. So I'm going to end it there. I agree with you. I'm excited to see midweek games for our Americans. This is going to be the last time these games that are going to probably be determined, and though it's probably already been determined, Greg Berhalter is going to name his roster for the September friendlies. It's looking like unofficially we're hearing that it's going to happen on Wednesday. Just so everybody knows, we normally have our later in the week shows on Thursday and Friday. When the roster drops, we're going to have an emergency podcast to break down everything that we learned and all the names that are on there. We're going to get after it. So make sure
Jimmy,
turn on your notifications.
Shout out to Zach. I always get your back, Zach.
Yeah, Jimmy, before we close this out, we have one question of has the Pepto worked yet? Are you feeling better?
I'm feeling better. I'm feeling a little more spry. Yeah, so the Pepto's working. I did douse a good portion of it in our first and only break of the show.
Yeah,
yes, thank you. Thank you for asking, everybody. I appreciate that you're concerned about my well-being. That means a lot. That's why we love this In Soccer We Trust community. All right, everybody, that is it, though. We are done. So on behalf of producer Lisa Roman, shout out to producer Lisa, producer Des, producer Alex, Charlie Chuck Wagon Davies, Hollywood Heath Pearce. I'm Jimmy Trashcan Conrad, and I can't wait.
Bismal Conrad.
Shout out Attacking Third.
I got another. I have
sponsorship
another
alert.
Nickname. Jimmy Pepto Bismol Conrad. Yeah, shout out to Attacking Third. Lisa does a great job hosting that one. So if you want any news on the women's soccer front, make sure you follow and support the Attacking Third. We'd appreciate that. And then we'll see you guys for the emergency roster podcast. I think that's going to be the next one. So we'll see you then. Thanks for listening and watching. Later.